Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Football Manager 2018, the beta with Zebu Nation. And this is going to be a very special episode. We're going to dive right into Major League Soccer. It's my favorite league. It's the league that I enjoy the most and the one that I watch the most, even though right now we got a little Premier League action going on in the background on the television. We got Leicester and Everton. Nice Sunday afternoon game. But later today, we got the MLS playoffs. So, in honor of the MLS playoffs, and because, let's face it, a lot of YouTubers took a look at Major League Soccer last season, and I think one of the main reasons were the improvements that Football Manager made to their version of Major League Soccer. And hopefully, in FM18, they've gone a step ahead and improved the version of MLS even more. So we're going to take a look at that, and hopefully people are going to, you get a little insight from these videos into the rules, into the quirks in the league, because it is a very different league from other leagues around the world, especially the Premier League. It's got, playoffs, no promotion, no relegation. It's got a salary cap. It's got all kinds of roster restrictions and things like that. A bunch of weird stuff that you're not necessarily used to in Europe. So hopefully I can highlight some of those things, give you, some base knowledge so that you can play an MLS save too and get in on some of the fun. So we're going to create a career mode here. And here we are. We should have 23 teams in the league. And I say 23 because there's a brand new club coming to MLS in a couple of seasons, LAFC. That's right, it has been announced that they are the expansion club for MLS coming forward. And frankly, MLS is planning a huge expansion. They're looking at possibly adding 6 to 8 more teams in the coming seasons. So you're going to have to get to know a lot of new teams coming in to the MLS. And honestly, in the United States, this is our version of promotion, right? You don't get promoted on the pitch, you get promoted in the boardroom, essentially. So LAFC, they were able to put together, enough money, stadium deals, all the kind of backroom dealings to able to get themselves a bid into Major League Soccer. So there are other clubs all around the country trying to put together the same thing. Sacramento, Austin, Texas, Detroit, Memphis, Miami. David Beckham famously is an investor in Miami FC, who's an established club, much like Minnesota was an established club, and they were able to essentially buy their way into MLS. Now you can say that that's not a very romantic way to have promotion in a league, and it certainly is not. It's very business-like, a very American way to do things, I think. But, we're going to take a look at LAFC in coming seasons. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to pick a team later. That'll give us a little bit more flexibility to take a look at LAFC. But in the meantime, we'll go to Advanced Setup. And there's a very good reason why you want to go to Advanced Setup when you play an MLS save. Now, if you're just going to take a look and play one season, then you don't really need to worry about it. You can just take the generic leagues that they load. They load the English leagues, the French leagues, German, and Mexico. Very good. So that's fine and dandy if you're just going to play one season, just going to look at the MLS, it's no problem. But if you really want to dive deep into the MLS and you want to go on an extended run and play for a few seasons, then there are a few other leagues that it's very important that you load. So we're going to go to Add, Remove Leagues, and take a look at all the leagues around the world that you can choose. Now you might ask yourself, we got the best leagues in the world. Why do we need anything else? Let's just get going. But there's a very specific reason, and it has to do with the transfer window. Now, a lot of players that I noticed last year in FM17, they got frustrated playing in the MLS because it was very hard to find players to come to their teams, right? No other teams in the world wanted to transfer their players in or out or anything like that. That is very frustrating to a lot of people. And there's actually a very good real-world reason for that. It's because the MLS doesn't necessarily share the same transfer windows with everybody in the world. For example, the MLS main transfer window takes place in the wintertime. It takes place February to May. You can call that the springtime if you'd like. That's debatable, but depending on where you are in the world. Anyway, February to May is the main MLS transfer window. That's their preseason window. That's the time when they're building their rosters and getting ready for a new season. But there's a problem with that. You may already know this if you follow these leagues closely. Most of the big leagues in the world do not have a transfer window open during that time. So, the leagues we're talking about here, we're talking about England, Scotland, Ireland, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Netherlands, Denmark, Mexico, Argentina, Chile, Colombia. None of those big, huge leagues share the same transfer window as the U.S. The only time they overlap is in the July-August window, which is mid-season for the MLS. So this is something you have to very much keep in mind. If you're looking to build your team, you have to build your team outside of the big leagues in the beginning of the season and keep an eye towards the big leagues at mid-season. So if you want to go over to England and poach one of your favorite players from, Wolves or Arsenal or somebody like that, you got to do that mid-season in the MLS. So if you don't want to get frustrated in the early season with nobody to trade with, nobody to transfer with, here are some good leagues to load. First of all, number one, Brazil. Brazil has some of the best players in the world, and luckily they share both transfer windows with the United States because they're essentially on the same time zone as the United States. Essentially the same, similar location as the United States in terms of longitude, latitude, that kind of stuff. It works out well time zone wise. So Brazil, United States have the same transfer window. China is another good one to load because there's a lot of money in China and they share the same preseason transfer window as the United States from February. Basically, the month of February is the Chinese. Actually, January, February is the Chinese transfer window, but they share that whole month of February with the United States. So if you want to get rid of some players, send them off to China because there's a lot of money in China and they're always looking to sign players. So that will alleviate some of the frustration in the early transfer window. So those are the two biggest leagues you want to sign. China, Brazil. Now some other big ones to add, you definitely want to add Finland. A lot of good players in there. They also share most of the transfer window with the United States. Basically the Nordic countries, Sweden as well as Norway. All three of those share transfer windows with the United States. Russia is another one. Again, there's a lot of money in Russia. And you can throw in Romania and Bulgaria in there as well if you want to just have some fun. So these are the leagues you want to load when you're looking at a United States MLS save. Okay, we'll go through them again. China, Brazil, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Russia, Bulgaria, and Romania. They all share transfer windows with the United States. So it'll just make things a lot easier when you're looking to buy and sell players. So keep that in mind. Here we go. I'm going to confirm that. So those are the leagues. Now it takes a little while to load this database. It is a medium database, which isn't too big, but it takes a couple of minutes to load. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause it here and then come back when the leagues are loaded. So we'll see you in a moment. Okay, we are back. Now here's our coach. We've done, coaching setup here, no problem. Just Zebu Nation. I just chose the basic coach. No problems there. So let's use that profile. Now here we are, MLS. Who are we going to coach? Who are we going to manage? It's a big decision, and you might not know exactly anything about the MLS, who's good, who's bad. So I'm going to do a quick rundown of sort of the best teams to look at. Now, first thing you got to understand is MLS is split into two conferences, Eastern Conference and Western Conference. Now, in order to get to those conferences, unfortunately, it's a bit of a maneuver here. So I think most people, when they start up the game, they're probably going to choose a Western Conference team without even realizing that an Eastern Conference exists. So keep in mind that Eastern Conference does exist. I'll show you how to get to that in a minute. But let's look at the Western Conference. The Western Conference is traditionally the strongest conference in the MLS. People don't like to think about it that way, but it's the truth. You got the likes of Los Angeles, FC Dallas, Seattle, Portland. All of those teams are traditionally at the top of the MLS supporter shield. They're all up there. So if you really want to start at the top of the league, you want to look at Seattle. They're predicted first place. They won the league this year. The playoffs are still going on, but in regular season, the supporter shield, they were the best team. They've got some good players, a very, very solid organization. Seattle has been playing professional soccer in the United States since the 1970s. That's a long time in the United States. It's not a long time in other parts in the world, but that makes them really one of the grandfathers of the sport here in the United States. So if you want a really established team, they got the likes of look at their team roster here. They got Clint Dempsey, Nicholas Ladero, Alonso, Roman Torres. They got some good players, some good established players. They've got, some good young players here. Jordan Morris is an up-and-coming international player for us. Well, not international, but he's on the U.S. national team is what I meant to say. So they got some good mix of older players and younger players. And the key to this team is Clint Dempsey. Of course, that's a name you probably know. Even if you don't know anything about American soccer, you probably know Clint Dempsey is one of the, established American stars out there. And he's still pretty good at 33 years old. But the key to this guy is that he's got a big contract, $3.9 million, which is pretty big for the United States. But at 33 years old, he's getting ready to retire. So when he does retire, that contract goes away, and it gives Seattle even more money to play with and makes them an even more dangerous club because they can go out then and sign another big player, a younger player, and get even better. So Seattle is very much poised to be the best team in the Western Conference. Now, if you're looking for a little bit more of a challenge, I think you go with Minnesota. They were a new expansion team last season. They're trying to build their club from the ground up, so they don't have a lot of big players, a lot of expensive players. They're trying to build through the draft and through their academy systems and stuff like that. And they're like an up-and-coming team, but they don't have a ton of resources. They're moving into a new stadium and all that kind of stuff. So if you want challenge, I think you go with Minnesota. If you're looking to sort of rebuild some teams, go back to the glory years. You're looking at LA Galaxy. They got a lot of resources there, a lot of money, a lot of training facilities. They're looking for star players, star power, but there's also a lot of pressure in LA. They want a winner, they want star players, they want results right now. So if you're looking for that kind of challenge, that kind of pressure, you're looking at LA Galaxy. Now in the Eastern Conference, things are a little bit less competitive out there, but still pretty competitive. So this is how you find them. You go up to the MLS, you go up to the drop-down list, go all the way down to USA, MLS, Eastern Conference, and here we have the other teams in the Eastern Conference. Atlanta United is the first team that's selected here, and they're probably one of the teams that you want to play with. A lot of people played with Atlanta United last year. They're a young, exciting team. They were an expansion team last season, but they've gone a different route of Minnesota. Instead, Atlanta United went out and got a lot of very young, exciting international players. They've got some very good young developmental players. Very good young star players. We'll call them star players for now because I just blanked on the term. Designated players, that's it. Some good young designated players, some good young international players. They're a very exciting team to play with. Hopefully, now in real life, they've moved into the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is a state-of-the-art stadium. The thing is crazy. It looks like it's from the future. Now here they've still got them listed as Bobby Dodd Stadium, which they were in temporarily while Mercedes-Benz Stadium was being built. Hopefully in FM18 they'll move into that luxurious palace, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and you'll be able to benefit from all of that. The other team, of course, the more established team that's at the top of the league is Toronto FC, one of the Canadian teams in the league. And as a Canadian team, they got slightly different rules than the rest of the league, which is something, you'd have to get used to. But Toronto FC is right now the crown jewel of the Eastern Conference. They've got players like Giovinco, Michael Bradley. They've got star players. Some of the best players in the league play for Toronto FC. If you want them, if you want a team that's veteran, that's ready to go right now, select Toronto FC. Now, if you like the idea of the LA Galaxy and all that pressure and all those resources and all that stuff, you're looking at the New York teams. New York FC predicted to finish first place. Of course, they play in Yankee Stadium, one of the most venerable stadiums in the United States for sports, not necessarily for soccer, though it does have a pretty good soccer history there as well. But, it's just a lot of resources, a lot of pressure. You're expected to be the best. And, the New York teams, New York Red Bull and New York FC, they are definitely some of the top teams. Now, if you're looking for a challenge, you're looking for a team to rebuild, I think the place to go is Columbus or Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia's got a small stadium, only 18,000 seater. The training facilities are pretty good. They've got some resources there in Philadelphia. It's a pretty big city. But for whatever reason, they just can't put things together consistently. And the same with Columbus. In fact, Columbus, their owner is talking about picking up the franchise and moving it to Texas, to Austin. So, you got a lot of instability in Columbus, and maybe you can come in and help them out. They're predicted to finish 10th. So they need a new manager. They need some new blood, and there you go. You can pick them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the Western Conference, and I'm going to pick one of my favorite franchises, which is FC Dallas. FC Dallas is a good franchise. They've got very good players, very good ownership, a very good youth system as well. It's one of the best youth systems in MLS is FC Dallas. But the other thing is they get a lot of national coverage here in the United States, mainly because the main soccer correspondents for ESPN are based in Dallas. So there's like a ESPN soccer podcast, which focuses quite a bit on Dallas. A lot of the stuff you'll see on ESPN.com talks about FC Dallas. So if you're looking for a club to follow through the media, I think FC Dallas is a very good club. So we're going to pick them. And there's our coaching style. Basic coaching style. We're going to just start playing. So here we are. This is an important screen. Everybody's seen this screen. Welcome to FC Dallas, right? You get these emails at the beginning of the season. Nation takes charge, welcome, yada, 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 attend the meeting, all that stuff. But in the MLS, new to this season, which is very, very helpful, is you get an email at the beginning of the season right here. MLS contract and registration information. This is very important. If you're not familiar with the MLS, you need this email. You need to read this email, and I would suggest going up here, saving this email as a note so that you can go back and reference it anytime you want, because this basically tells you a lot about the quirks to the MLS registration. I'm going to take a drink of water there. I'm starting to get a little froggy from all this talking. But this email is very important. You need to read it over. You need to try to parse it and understand it, and I'll help you do that a little bit here. So the first thing you need to know about MLS when building your roster, two key things to note. Number one is they have this concept called designated players, which are players that you can pay more money for, and they don't cost as much against the salary cap, because the salary cap, there's a certain amount of money that each teams are allowed to spend on their wages. And in the MLS, the one way to get around that is with designated players. And like I said, you can have a maximum of 3 per team. So these are players, as it says here in the email, typically of higher stature and greater quality than the rest of the squad. Their contributions towards the salary cap will equal to the maximum senior salary of $480,000, regardless of their total wages. So, the average player, the most they can get paid in the MLS is $480,000, which is, not that much compared to the rest of the world. But when it comes to these 3 designated players, you can pay them whatever you can afford, right? 5 million, 10 million, 15, 20 million, whatever you can afford, you can pay them that money to bring them to your team, but they'll only count 480,000 versus the cap. Very important to have these 3 players on your team, especially if you're in the Champions League and you want to, compete with some of those teams in Mexico. You need some very, very good designated star players. The other thing you need to know is you can only have a maximum of 8 international players, meaning players who are not born or somehow allocated to the United States of America, right? Sometimes if they come over and they stay here 5 years, they can get their citizenship, that kind of stuff. They'll then count as American. That's no problem, but you can only have 8 players on your team who are truly international players. You've also got a bunch of different stuff, like you've got different types of contracts in the MLS. I mentioned the designated player contract. There's also the basic senior contract and the off-budget contract. Now, this is where you start getting into the weeds because there are different kinds of off-budget contracts. There's all kinds of wacky stuff to understand with the MLS, and I'm going to try to help you go over that. But the main place you want to go, if you're confused about your roster, who's on your roster, what's going on, you need to go up here to squad and then registration. This is the main screen you're going to look at when you're building your roster and you're trying to figure out who's who and what's what. It's got all the key stats that you need right here at the top of the screen. Maximum team size, 30 players. Good to know. Maximum designated players, 3. Internationals, 8. Off-budget players, 10. All right, so let's auto-select FC Dallas here and see what our team looks like. We got 28. If you look over here on the right, we've got 28 players. 3 of them are designated players. 8 of them are internationals, so that all checks out so far. We've got 10 off-budget players. 5 of them are reserves. 2 of them are non-homegrown reserves. So our roster checks out. Here's our salary cap of the current year, $3.85 million. We are exactly at that with $3.85 million. So how do you know which of these players are which? Like, how do you know who's off budget and who's international and who's all that? You have to look down here at the information screen. Unfortunately, this is the best place to look. I haven't really seen a better place yet. So you have to look down here on the left-hand side under the information tab. And I like to bring up the contracts page, which also shows you their salary cap impact. So that kind of gives you an idea of what impact they're having on the cap. So let's say you get to the end of the registration period and you need to register your team and you're like, oh man, I'm $475,000 over the cap, or I'm $200,000 over the cap. Who do I get rid of? You come down here, you look at the salary cap impact and say, well, if $200,000, I could get rid of, Michael Barrios. He's $100,000 against the cap. I could get rid of, whatever. You can use this to kind of figure things out. But the main thing you want to look at here is the information tab. And down here on the left-hand side, it kind of shows you what each player, what their squad status is. So anybody with a gray status means they have some kind of special status within the MLS formula. So this guy here, Adonijah Reed, he is a Generation Adidas player. And you see he has GAI. Anything here with an I means they're international player. Okay. Now, he's out on loan because he's blue here, so he doesn't really count. You can kind of dismiss him. But he does have a special contract, Generation Adidas, but we've loaned him out, so that doesn't matter. So we can go down and look at the rest of the team. DP, designated player. YDP, young designated international player. So he's got the I on the end, so that makes him one of our 8 international players. And if you count up the I's on the team, 2 young designated internationals, 2 senior minimum internationals, which we'll talk about that in a minute, and then, 4 regular internationals for our 8 internationals. So you got to kind of look here add up the I's and the T's and the, all this kind of stuff, and that will equal over here. So it takes some getting used to. It takes some nuance to look at this stuff and figure out what's going on. But those are the places where you look for your contracts, for your squad, for all that kind of stuff. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to run down the old checklist and take a look at, a few things here and there. I think first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the dynamics tab. And you can see the locker room atmosphere here in FC Dallas is not very good. Very poor. Players are unhappy, not enjoying their soccer, discontent. Many contrasting personalities, wide range of ages among the squad. Now, this is preseason, so what I found is that basically every preseason, everybody's kind of unhappy. The other thing I noticed is that our team leaders, like Michael Barrios here, he has leadership of 8, so he's not a particularly good leader. We can look at our hierarchy, the famous pyramid. Atiba Harris, Barrios, and Mauro Diaz. Mauro Diaz, leadership of 5. So our leaders are not very good leaders. So we're going to have to do something about that. We're going to have to flop this around and try to get some of our better leaders up here into our team leadership role. So we got some work to do in our dynamics. Social groups, looking pretty good. Our core social group. Got a lot of players who've been at the club that share a similar level of professionalism. So that's good. A lot of players who've been at the club for the same length of time. So I think social group wise, we're okay. It's just a matter of who's leading those groups is the question here in FC Dallas. And this actually played out in real life in FC Dallas. They were supposed to be one of the best teams in the league last season, but they really folded and they didn't even make the playoffs. They won the Supporters Shield the year before, which was the league championship, the regular season championship, and then the next season they don't even qualify for the playoffs. So it's, nobody could figure out the issue, and I think, the issue might have come down to locker room cohesion, and the team just didn't play well together. So this, this dynamics could be showing you exactly what happened in real life. Now here's the screen you can look at, some of our guys are not looking so good. Atiba Harris, very poor. Akindele is abysmal. He's a guy who's always wanted more playing time, never got it. Walker Hume, same thing, a 23-year-old. A lot of our 23-year-olds are not looking good. Paxton Pomical, our very promising young midfielder, also feeling not so good for whatever reason. I don't know. But we got work to do in our dynamics. Now we'll go down, we'll take a look at the new medical center. We don't really have a physio or anything like that to look at, so nothing happening there. The FC Dallas Juniors, I told you that their squad is very, very good youth, and you can see here we got 3 players right off the bat who have the potential to be, MLS starter caliber guys, MLS star player guys even. With this goalkeeper here, Amadeo, the goalkeeper, he's looking very good. So we can take a look at the club, and you can see some of the things that make this team a little special. The facilities, of course, are very good. Excellent youth facilities, superb training facilities, and that's the thing you'll find out through most of the teams in the MLS. They've got very good training facilities. Now the difficult thing in the MLS is finding teams to loan to that have as good of training facilities as you do. So loaning players out in the MLS isn't the best thing to do unless you can find the right teams to loan them out to. And luckily for FC Dallas, if you're someone who likes to have a lot of young players and loan them out, FC Dallas is the place to go because you look at their affiliates, they've got 2 of the best affiliates in the game. First and foremost is Tigres from Mexico, one of the best Mexican division teams. You can get loan players from Tigres. You can send some of your best young players out to Tigres. Now, Tigres might not take a lot of your players because they're actually a better team than you are in terms of competition wise. and just player quality wise. So really, if you come across any real wonder kids in your youth system, you can send them off to Tigres and let them get that higher level of training, a higher level of competition. But most of your players, I think, will go to Oklahoma City. They're a lower division team. They're a Division III team in U.S. soccer. But we take a look at their facilities here. They've got good training facilities, which is very good for a lower division team in the United States. Most of them have sort of average or below average type training facilities. So when you find a team like Oklahoma City that has good training facilities and they're already your affiliate club, that's gold right there. So you'll be able to send off a lot of your players when they reach the age of 18, they graduate from your academy, you can send them straight into Oklahoma City and continue to build your youngsters in that way. So there we go. We've taken a quick look at the MLS, quick look at FC Dallas. Now I think we're going to end the episode there. If you got any questions, go ahead and send them to me. Leave them a comment. I'm going to come back and show a game with FC Dallas and sort of show you more of the MLS rosters and MLS tactics and all that kind of stuff in another video. This video has gone long enough. So, yeah, like I said, leave a comment. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you want to subscribe, I'm going to be doing Football Manager content every Saturday and Sunday. You can take a look at it there. You can save it till the rest of the week. There's a lot of FM18 content out there right now. So if there's not enough on the weekends, you can come here, take a look at my MLS content. And in the future, I'm going to be doing other leagues. But for the beta right now, I'm going to be focusing on the MLS. So there you go. I guess that's it. So until next time, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.